I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, there was a story in the Business in Vancouver on a study that just came out from the BC Real Estate Association. Closing that myth that the NDP government likes to put out, that the speculators and money launderers are all out there and everyone's flipping homes, and that's why we put this flipping tax in, because people are buying homes and then selling them in short order for huge profit and everything else, when they're not. I've been going on about this for 10 years, how individual mom and pop landlords get a bad rap in this province and in this city. So it's a new study that says BC residential real estate investors unfairly painted as speculators. And they did a deep dive on people buying investment condos and how long they're keeping them before they put them back on the market. But I've been telling you guys this for years. I've got hundreds of investor clients, and I know full well they're investors. We're not flipping properties. And I've taken looks all the time. Every day I'm in the MLS and the Paragon system. When a condo gets listed, I quickly, the first thing I want to do is go into the history. You guys don't have access to this. I do at my fingertips. I can go in and see when was that unit last sold. And a lot of times it will also state whether the unit is, whether it's owner occupied or tenanted or vacant. If it's vacant, it probably means as well that it was at one point an investment unit. It was tenanted and they did the right thing and got the tenant out. But it is very rare that I will see a condo listed that was just bought a year or 2 or 3 years prior to that. They're mostly held for long periods of time, like all the investors I work with. Unlike what the NDP and David Eby tells you, that we're going to put a speculator tax in place because people are buying and flipping condos. How many blogs have I done on the difference between an investor and a speculator? Flippers are not out there in this market, and they never have been, because our friction costs are ridiculously high here. The PTT, the biggest tax grab going, and then the commissions, possibly the GST, and 2 sets of conveyancing fees. A typical one-bedroom condo, you need to go up 50, 60K just to break even on your friction costs. Instead, my clients are investors. We're going to buy the unit, absorb those friction costs over long periods of time, put a tenant in the unit, and keep it for 10, 15, 20, 25 years until the tenant has paid off the mortgage. Then we'll review it. This study proves that there is very little buying and selling in quick order. The exception to that might be what I talked about many times. Someone buying a condo, a professional renovator, putting 100, 150K into it. It's not an easy business, and it's a very risky business that I would only leave to the pros, and then putting it back on the market and trying to eke out a bit of money on it. But a lot of times they break even, lose money in some cases, depending on where the market goes. And again, they provide an excellent service in this market because the new buyer can mortgage the fully renoed unit. They don't have the ability to hire tradespeople and renovate the unit. I apologize for the noise back here, guys. I'm in my office here. There's a bit of renovation work going on the pipes. After I turn off this, I'm going to have to try and find this guy, tell him to be quiet. But this final thing I want to say on this is that I've done many blogs on how underappreciated the independent, or what we call the mom and pop landlord, is in this city and in this province. Mr. Eby and the NDP just do not get it. I think they do. They know deep down, but you see, it's all optics for them to try and buy votes and to create boogeymen, fake boogeymen, like speculators and flippers and money launderers and foreign buyers. They don't exist. And it's been proven over and over again that they don't. Here's another study that puts the final nail in the coffin to how there are very little flippers out there. But of course, we just introduced a useless flipping tax to try and buy votes. Don't fall for this, folks. You're being hoodwinked by these people. The mom and pop landlord here in downtown Vancouver provides the vast majority of quality rental housing here. If you want to rent a nice 1-bedroom in Dan or a 2-bed, you're dealing with, for the most part, a individual landlord. If you want to rent a house in Burnaby or a detached house on the west side, you're dealing with an individual landlord. You want to rent a townhouse, individual landlord. We got a bunch of old, dilapidated, purposely built rentals in the West End that are falling apart, drafty. Windows are letting in cold air. Or a few, and there's a few more coming, purposely built newer rental. But they're a long way away, and they're providing very little of the quality housing stock. And to be honest with you, we need it, and I'm all for it. But gee, I would much rather, if you're a renter, you know, you're far better off renting a condo in a stratified building as opposed to one of these purposely built rental buildings. Sure, they're nice. Some of them are newer, you know, but nowhere near the amenities and the living quality of living that you're going to get in a stratified condo. Because remember, it's all renters in these buildings. The turnover is tremendous. Parties all night, noise, continuous moving every single month. It's a circus in some of these buildings. So you're way better off renting from an individual landlord, and always will be. But again, I've talked about it. I mean, they give us these, you know, measly rent increases when the cost of holding these properties is going up double digits. A 2-year rent freeze. Didn't care about the landlord. Sure, protect the renter, which I'm all for during COVID. But what about the landlord? You think the bank is telling him he doesn't need to make the rent payments anymore or the mortgage payments anymore? Of course not. It's a one-way street with the NDP. So, you know, they're finding that out. That's why some longtime landlords who have owned these units for decades are getting out of the market. I told you guys I sold about 7 or 8 last year. And of the 7 or 8 I sold, all but one were to an investor. All but one were to an end user. So there was 6 units that were out of the rental pool, and a principal residence buyer was buying. So that rental pool is going to shrink, and that's why you're seeing the results of these rents skyrocketing. Maybe someone should do the math and show the NDP this, about a survey like this where there is no flipping and speculating, and the amount of quality rental stock that the individual landlord provides, and how you better start maybe catering a little bit more to these landlords, giving us the proper amount of rent increase. The rent increase for 2023 should have been about 8%. The year prior, it should have been about 7%. Eventually, they're going to run out of rope here, and more landlords will get out of the business, which will then, of course, keep those rent prices sky high. And I'm not selling any of my units. I've told you guys, I've got a couple of tenants paying way below market rent. Hey, I'll up it when they finally do move out. In the meantime, of course, the prices, the values keep going up. The rental rates keep coming up. Less competition if some landlords do leave it. So I'll be able to charge even more when that tenant does get out. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks to all my new subscribers. I've coming up to 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. I'm also getting a lot of new followers on Twitter. I'm not super active on Twitter, but I put out some good stuff out on there a couple times a week, so you could check me out on Twitter as well. See you next week.